Hey there and welcome back to NBA 2K17. My name is Pete and today we complete the first year of NBA 2K17's MyGM or MyLeague mode, and I'll show you 3 moves to make with the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets are in my opinion one of the most intriguing teams to take over in MyGM or MyLeague. None of the players is a superstar, and even calling one of them a star can be argued about, but one thing is for sure, the team has potential written all over it. The plethora of young up-and-comers also makes it a bit difficult to define a clear core for the team, so in our situation overview, let's just go through the roster position by position. I think that's the easiest way. We start at point guard, where 22-year-old Emmanuel Mudiay is set as the starter, backed up by the much older Jameer Nelson. In theory, Jamal Murray can also play point guard as the secondary position, but he is much better suited for the shooting guard spot and should stay there. And that shooting guard spot is stacked. Barton, Harris and Murray are all starting caliber material, and it will be tough to juggle their minutes. Murray probably has the biggest upside as the youngest of the 3, while Malik Beasley also exists but won't see minutes here. Strictly in terms of player rating, he's also better suited for the small forward. If you're now thinking about making room for Harris and Murray and switching Barton to the small forward, then I have bad news for you, because the small forward spot is stacked as well. The position is actually so deep it's almost comical. First of all, the Nuggets' 2 best players are both small forwards, and both Gallinari and Chandler will make a claim for this starting spot. They also both have the same secondary position, one that is already blocked by Kenneth Faried, so get used to the idea of having one of them as your 6th man. Now the list continues. Second, we still have Alonzo G and Mike Miller, also listed as small forwards. Third, I mentioned that a second ago, Malik Beasley can and should be switched from shooting guard to small forward, because that increases his player rating. And we're not done yet. 2 of your 3 power forwards, that's Arthur and Hernan Gomez, are also better on the small forward, so you could theoretically think about switching them to small forward as well. Doing all of that would leave you with 7 small forwards, however, which can be considered a healthy overkill. I would personally switch Beasley and maybe Hernan Gomez, as they won't get many minutes anyway, but keep Arthur on the power forward. And for the power forward spot, I have already talked about 2 of the 3 guys here. The third is your starter Kenneth Faried, also still only 26 and with room to improve in that role. Then at the center you have an incredibly promising duo of big men in Nurkic and Jokic, both about the same age, the same rating and with almost the same skill set, but both also very talented and able to play the power forward. Rating wise they're actually better suited for that, so you can put them on the court next to each other for stretches. Let's have a look at the expiring contracts next. You only have 1 contract that straight up expires, and that's the one for Alonzo G, so not much to worry about here. However, there is a nice number of team options coming up. 3 of your up-and-comers have one, that's Harris, Nurkic and Mudiay, and let's get this out of the way now, you will want to take them all. The 4th team option is $3.5 million for 36-year-old Mike Miller, and here I would be a bit more cautious, but we'll get into that later. There is also one potentially troubling player option on Danilo Gallinari. However, since the rest of your roster is locked down, if he refuses, then you can just throw the money at him in free agency. A quick look at the draft picks. Despite being already full of young talent, the Nuggets have 2 first-rounders in 2017, but no second-rounders. In 2018 they have the first and the Warriors second, in 2019 only their first, and in 2020 finally both of their own picks. And to wrap up the situation overview, let's also look at cap space. The Nuggets have over $19 million in cap space still, so that gives you a ton of flexibility. Then in the next year, even if you were to accept all team options and Gallinari also chooses to stay with his player option for $16 million, you would still have about $17 million in room. Be careful with the money though, because your young guys will sooner or later grow out of their rookie contracts and demand real money. It would be a shame if you had nothing left then. And now let's get into it, and as usual, here are your 3 key questions that need to be made going into year 1 with the Nuggets. Question number 1, who starts and who sits? Your roster is full of potential starters, and picking a functioning unit both for the starting lineup and the bench can be a bit of a challenge. The most interesting positions here are probably the shooting guard, where you have 3 viable options, the small forward, where you have to choose between Gallinari or Chandler, and the center, where it's Nurkic or Jokic. Question number 2, are you willing to trade more than the 2 old guys? I think it goes without saying that Jameer Nelson and Mike Miller are your 2 prime trade targets. Age-wise, they don't really fit in, and in the case of Mike Miller, he also doesn't contribute much to the rotation. However, maybe you think that with the positions so stacked as they are, that you want to get rid of 1 or 2 more guys. And the third question is, are you willing to take a risk on Gallinari? Now, Gallinari is definitely one of your core players, but that player option is a bit of a question mark. I talked about this earlier, there are means to get him back if he declines the option, but maybe you want him to decline the option for salary cap reasons, and in that scenario, maybe a trade at the deadline is an interesting option. Now, before we go into the moves, I just want to quickly say that I consider no one on the Nuggets completely untradeable. Yes, there are many potential star players on the team, but their sheer number would make it acceptable to trade one if the right move comes along. With that being said, in this video I won't make any blockbuster trades, so we will keep the core together. And with that, let's jump right into move number 1. Here we will upgrade the point guard position by trading Jameer Nelson. 2 reasons for that. Nelson is getting old, and compared to the rest of the roster, the backup point guard is a weak position. I would recommend trading him now while his value is high and getting someone younger who can develop with the rest of the core. When making this move, keep an eye on the salary though. A guy like Jared Bayless might be interesting, but his $9 million salary for the next 3 years probably isn't. Also, this player doesn't necessarily have to be someone better than Nelson, just someone with more upside than him over the next few years. Targets include, for example, Tyler Ennis from Houston, or the option I went with, Joseph Young from the Indiana Pacers. You might have to throw a second rounder in there, but I consider that not much of a loss. Alternatively, if you can't find anything for Nelson or you simply don't want to trade him, then you can stick with him till the end of the season and grab a backup point guard off the free agency market. Names that hit the list after the season include, for example, Michael Carter-Williams, Shelvin Mack, Ty Lawson or Trey Burke. Like I said already, I went with Nelson and a second rounder for Joseph Young, so let's move on to move number 2. Move number 2 will be to trade either G or Miller or both for a third option at the center. Once again, 2 reasons for that. Number 1, you are a bit thin at the center behind Nurkic and Jokic, and the power forward reserves won't be able to fill in, as they are all better suited for the small forward than the center spot. Number 2, G is an expiring contract and Mike Miller is getting old, both are bench warmers at the small forward and won't be missed. A third center, however, could save your rotation should the injury bug bite. Possible trade scenarios include this one, G for Pachulia from the Warriors, however that trade makes little sense for the Warriors. Or this one, G for Skal Labissière, a player I absolutely love in 2K. For Mike Miller there is not too much available, but one option would be Miller and a second rounder for Alexis Ajinça from the New Orleans Pelicans. As you might have been able to guess, I went with Labissière simply because he fits this up-and-coming theme of the Nuggets very well. That leaves us with the third move, and that one is actually optional, as it involves trading whoever you did not trade in move number 2, so either G or Miller, for another backup point guard. Now you do have 2 point guards with a potential third one in Jamal Murray, but I would prefer to have him exclusively play the shooting guard spot. At least in 2K he simply isn't that good as a point guard. If you go with that strategy and one of your point guards gets injured, then you're looking a bit thin here. So a third string point guard is an interesting option if you can acquire one. However, you could still go with Murray, save you the hassle, the move is not too important and can therefore be skipped. Speaking of skipping, let's jump ahead to the end of the season. You will probably end up somewhere between 40 and 45 wins with the chance to secure one of the lower playoff seeds. That will very likely make you cannon fodder for one of the top teams in the West, but don't worry about that for now. Your first round picks, remember you have 2 of them, should land somewhere in the mid to late first round. Consider packaging them together to trade up, or if the draft class is deep enough, select 2 promising prospects and move on. I would target the power forward position, or if you skip move number 3, then also the point guard positions, since those 2 are not the deepest off the bench. Like I said earlier, the team options are all no-brainers. If you traded away Miller, then you won't have to worry about that now, otherwise I would not pick him back up. If you acquired Joseph Young from Indiana, then you have another option that should be picked up here, even if you drafted someone to fill his spot. Danilo Gallinari should more than likely also accept this player option. If he doesn't, then he is your number 1 target in free agency. There are no qualifying offers for you to make, and only Alonzo G will be listed under the Your Free Agent section unless you traded him away. He will be more than happy to come back on a minimum deal, but maybe you want to save the money and throw an offer at someone. I would be cautious with that, however, because like I said earlier, sooner or later your youngsters will want their payday. Additionally, if you made all the moves like I did and you signed 2 rookies, then you won't have space on your roster anyway. In fact, you have 1 player too many. That's also another reason to maybe package the picks together and trade up. Then one of the loveliest sights will be the player progression tab with green arrows all over it, and with a young and improving team you can enter the next season. And that concludes our 3 moves to make as the Denver Nuggets. Leave a thumbs up if you like this video, click on the playlist to the left if you want to see more 2K videos, or if you simply want to support the channel, then click on the trophy icon on the top right and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!